Now listen, I know what you're thinking when you read that title. Why not just play the best tanks in the game to have the best chance of doing well, since the best tanks should be, well, the best? Now, my naive friend, will you learn that in reality, the best tank if you really want to solo carry is not Zarya or D.Va, despite both of those heroes being the best tanks in the game by quite a margin, at least for the Season 1 patch, but in truth, it's actually everyone's favorite character named Roadhog. Roadhog. Now, there's a few very specific reasons why Roadhog is undoubtedly the best hero to play if you want to solo carry, especially at lower ranks, and without wasting any more time, I'll first dispel why the best overall tanks in the game aren't actually the best tanks if you're trying to get out of elo hell. Firstly, if you know anything about Zarya or D.Va's kits, they're largely reliant on team assistance, with Zarya being great at helping your teammates dive in with protection, and D.Va constantly using her defense matrix to block widespread damage in one direction to protect your teammates when they're in a vulnerable position. Obviously, both of these abilities can be useful if you're playing selfishly, as Zarya can bubble herself at any time, and D.Va can use the defense matrix to protect herself from getting shot at, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the ability to work with your team is inherently built into both of their kits. In other words, if you're using either of these characters properly, you have to be playing with your team. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if your plans are to solo carry, especially at a rank where team play is not as organized, it's best if you choose a character that 100% focuses on your own performance, which is where Roadhog comes in. Roadhog is just about the most selfish tank there is, and is probably the most DPS-like tank in the game currently, even when bringing Doomfist into consideration, who is literally a damage character in Overwatch 1, but even he relies more on the team as he has no ability to self-heal, and has his power block, which is best used in conjunction with your team. Anyway, the best way to certify a hero is amazing at solo carrying is their ability to do all of the roles, and that's precisely what Roadhog is so good at. Despite being a tank, he excels at getting picks, often even better than most DPS heroes, and can rely wholly on himself to get heals because he has a portable 350 HP health pack that replenishes literally every 8 seconds, making him pretty much the perfect character to do everything you need on the team. And let's not forget, 350 HP is a lot of health. That's nearly double the health of most characters in the roster. Now you might be asking, if he's so good, why doesn't everybody just play him? And firstly, that's a great point. The world would probably be a utopia if everyone just played Roadhog all the time, but I digress. On a more serious note, it's because especially at higher ranks, you can expect the DPS to be able to properly counter Roadhog with his massive hitbox, and dealing with a McCree that can hit constant 140 damage headshots on you, or a Sojourn that's shooting at your fat belly to get 100% charge, and the ability to one-shot any of your squishy teammates at any moment, makes him a far worse off pick as you get to ranks where players actually know how to use their mouse. Not to mention all the ult charge that can be farmed off Roadhog with all the constant damage he allows you to get off. This makes Roadhog not nearly as certain a pick at higher ranks without smart team play and positioning, but having this understanding makes him all the better at ranks where players aren't constantly countering your tank picks, and even if they are, they probably don't have the mechanical skills to properly take advantage of your thickness. Now you might ask, why not just play Junker Queen? And while she is a pretty decent pick, she just doesn't have that constant one-shot kill potential that Roadhog has, which allows him to have a massive impact throughout the entire match. She also doesn't have nearly as much HP or the ability to self-heal while alone, which makes her generally more reliant on her team. Not to mention all the zoning Roadhog does, because the enemy team, especially those with lower HP, will have to focus on staying out of your hook range, which gives you and your team way more map control. Junker Queen isn't a bad pick, and really any character that has self-heal built in is generally a better character for solo queuing and solo carrying, but if we're talking about the absolute best option, she definitely gets outclassed by Roadhog. Also, it's worth mentioning that Roadhog doesn't take a great deal of skill to play well. You can see through this entire gameplay that while I do hit a good few hooks, I miss a ton as well, and my ability to hit scrap gun shots consistently is far from impressive. Yeah, the right-click delayed scrap gun shot does take some skill, but you really don't have to master that part of his kit if you want to be effective, and it can generally just be used to do more chip damage at greater ranges. Not to mention the random one-shot kills you get from mid-range, which are always fun. Wow, that was cool. Point is, you don't need fantastic aim, game sense, or practice with Roadhog to make him effective, especially when you compare it to the game sense needed to play well with Winston, or the tracking you need to play well with Zarya. All you need to know is knowing when to retreat so you don't get caught dead before having enough time to heal, and if you want to get a little fancy, the art of meleeing toward an enemy at mid-range to imitate the look of throwing your hook out, which can be a very useful skill to force a Genji to reflect, or a Zarya to use her bubble early. The most important skill you probably need as Roadhog is a bit of prediction with regards to hitting his hooks on moving targets, but again, the hook is has a pretty forgiving ability, and there are ways to make it even easier to land, like equipping a crosshair that corresponds exactly to the hook's hitbox so you can be even more consistent with landing them. I got this specific tip from Mindful Gamer, his link will be in the description, as well as a short video on how to set this up. The point is, there's just really no other tank that gets the same amount of value as he does for how much work you have to put in, and the primary weakness of Roadhog lies in deficiencies that are only ever properly taken advantage of by players at higher ranks. I legitimately think he's pretty overpowered under Platinum and even under Diamond, just because you seriously need some solid DPS to be able to counter his incredibly easy and forgiving kit, which eats 200 HP heroes for breakfast. And I mean, like, he eats a lot, he's a chubby dude, so you know he eats a lot and gets a lot of kills. Reaper is the most obvious counter to Roadhog, and while he can give you some trouble, especially if he's fairly decent at hitting his shots, it's not like Roadhog doesn't have his own shotgun that does similar damage. And if you want to make sure you never get caught out by him, just make sure you have a hook ready and do the slightest bit of chip damage to him before getting the hook off, so you can get a one-shot kill despite his 250 HP before he gets the chance to Wraith away. The strategy against Reaper is to make sure to do the extra bit of damage necessary before you hook him, as if you hook, shoot, and melee him, if he even has a sliver of health left, he can easily Wraith away and survive. A Reaper will almost never use his Wraith if he's above 200 HP, but will almost always do it if he's below 50. Ideally, you never want to engage with enemies that are outside of your hook range, so using corners and a bit of map knowledge can be useful, and focusing on going for hooks when an enemy is changing direction, or when you seem distracted or they think you're distracted, that's often your best bet. Try not to just stare at an enemy mid-range without shooting, as I see a lot of Roadhogs do this, because that gives the obvious impression that you're just waiting to line up a hook, which will dramatically decrease your chances and let the enemy know exactly what to expect and prepare them to avoid it. A little bit of unpredictability goes a long way. You know, Sun Tzu Art of War type shit. Try not to think too much about it, as Roadhog is a fairly simple hero, and make sure you target squishies, or heroes with 200 HP or less, as they can easily be one-shotted, because turning a 5v5 into a 4v5 with just a single ability is even more impactful in Overwatch 2 than in the OG, as a team in a 4v5 scenario is worse off than a team in a 5v6 scenario, because you're eliminating a greater overall percentage of their team. Anyway, that's most of what I had to say. I just realized after getting placed at Silver 2, my lowest rank I may have ever gotten, that while Zarya and D.Va were somewhat decent picks at this rank, I should be able to tear through these players, but I just couldn't. I don't know why. I wasn't winning every single match until I switched to Roadhog, where I realized I could have maximum influence on every single fight, but just making sure I got rid of 1 to 2 key enemy heroes, and letting the team imbalance do the rest. Unfortunately, now I've quadruple ranked up after my 7 wins, so my record will probably not be flawless, and I won't get praised in chat every post-match, which is really a great change of pace from getting roasted every single match by Masters players when I'm playing DPS. Alas, at least I can give off this clandestine advice to you guys so you can enjoy the same advantages in your own matches. If you think there's a better tank to play at these ranks that seems to give you automatic wins, drop it in the comments and explain your experience, because I'm sure the people who clicked on this video will be looking for the same kind of information. Maybe I'm just bad at Zarya, but when the enemy team doesn't even do enough damage to give me max charge, what can a young gamer do? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I appreciate you for clicking on this video. It's been Shakes, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. What rank do you think I got? What rank do you think I got for tank? What tank?
Oh my god, he's so mad.
No way! No way! That is crazy. I'm Silver 3. That is crazy. That is absurd.
He thought he was gonna get diamond.
No way. I thought, okay, at least gold one.
So bad, bro. So bad. So
no way,
bad.
dude. I've never been silver in a video game.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Bro.
I've never had silver in a video game.
Yeah, one more.
We're absurd.
Fucking worst, bro.
Crazy. No, I don't deserve silver. No.
The absolute worst.